Let me start with both Baker Mayfield and Tom Brady. So the news is Tom Brady signed a contract extension, going to pay him $23 million per year. One of the provisions in the contract that is a little bit backloaded, there is some dead money for next year, is if the Patriots choose to void the last 2 years, they can void the last 2 years and he can become a free agent, but they agreed not to franchise or transitional tag him. We'll get to what that means a little later on. But the story is that Tom Brady comes from money, married into money, and decided to take a little bit less money because it makes business sense. His hair is perfect, his teeth are perfect, and he has kind of that perfect New England style look and gait. Then there's Baker Mayfield. Walk on from Texas, went to Texas Tech to Oklahoma, you know the story. Becomes kind of an lightly regarded number one overall pick, right? I mean, to go from walk-on to number one overall pick and Heisman Trophy winner is amazing. Over the weekend, he bit into a beer and pretended to chug the whole thing, fired up the crowd at the Indians game. They put together a 5-run inning. He gets credit for it. He had a Francisco Lindor jersey on. Lindor hit a home run. And the legend of Baker Mayfield grows. Look, I don't think Baker Mayfield will ever be Tom Brady. I don't think he necessarily wants to be Tom Brady. I don't know how good a quarterback Baker Mayfield is at the end of the day. That's the truth. No idea. But I will say this. Baker Mayfield is the perfect fit for the Cleveland Browns. All right, they won one game combined in 2 years. You know that. No one kind of believed in them. They've run through coaches, run through quarterbacks. Heck, even in Baker Mayfield's time, he's had 2 different head coaches. He's had 3 different offensive coordinators already. They're kind of land of misfit toys. And yeah, they have Jarvis Landry. And yeah, they have Odell Beckham Jr. and kept their wide receivers coach to keep them happy. But it's just kind of a weird, like, why do they have all these big names at big positions and yet they're in Cleveland for a franchise that, since it was reformed, I think they made the playoffs 1 or 2 times. It's crazy. But if you watched him over the weekend, like, look, Baker's a little bit thicker than you would think. Like, he doesn't look like Cam Newton, who looks like the picture of what an athlete's supposed to look like. He's rocking the mustache right now, kind of comically so. And while he probably didn't pound the entire beer, he sold it almost like a WWE star. And it looked like, I don't know what Cleveland is supposed to look like, but that felt like Cleveland. That felt like Cleveland. Then you go to Tom Brady, who, look, he's had the Tom versus time. He's got a house with a moat. He's got this beautiful family, a gorgeous wife, perfect hair, drives luxury cars, wears ridiculous watches. His suits fit him perfectly. He's kind of a dork singing karaoke. Tom Brady feels like New England, feels like the Patriots. You ever notice that sometimes quarterbacks, the ones that really work out, end up feeling like the place they work for? It just doesn't that ever strike you as kind of odd? Like, yeah, that makes, even Cam Newton, who's very Southern, he can be eclectic in his dress. And the way he dresses, like, I don't know if you saw him over the weekend, but apparently he was at Walmart with some overalls on, nothing else, and then had like a scarf around him. But it almost felt like a lady's scarf, but, you know, if you're Cam Newton, you can kind of wear whatever. That might work in New York, and it probably works in Charlotte, and that's about it. Like, he is a Southern dude and feels like a Southern dude. I mean, Peyton Manning and Andrew Luck felt like Indianapolis, right? They just did. Dan Marino felt like the Miami Dolphins. Joe Montana felt like the San Francisco 49ers. But I saw Baker Mayfield over the weekend, and I thought it was cool. I thought it was funny. I don't think he pounded the entire beer, right? Because you can't do that with your teeth. Doesn't come out fast enough. Got to cut it open with your key. You bite it, and then you use like a key, and you cut it open, you turn it sideways, you open it, pound it. And then we get to Tom Brady, which is, look, I understand that Dak Prescott doesn't have a wife worth $150 million. I understand that Dak Prescott hasn't been doing this for 20 years. But if somebody is successful and consistently successful, and you try and figure out, hey, why are they so successful all the time? Maybe at least a portion of it is their best player or their most important player, their most important leader, takes a little bit less than market value so that everybody else can get paid and so they can put a good enough team around him. And there is no one-man band in football. Football has 53 guys on the roster. And while Brady has been better compensated than I think some give him credit, it's not like he's playing at the minimum, even though he's made a couple $100 million during his time playing in the National Football League. He is $23 million as opposed to $30 million, which is going rate for the top quarterbacks. He's not close. And if you wanted to kind of agree with me, and I said, well, Tom Brady right now maybe isn't a top 5 actual quarterback because of his arm strength during the year, whatever, still, Tom Brady deserves, based upon reputation, leadership, ability to play in a big game, even when he doesn't play well, like against Kansas City, came through later after what would have been the third interception. You're going to pay Tom Brady $30 million a year, not the Patriots. He feels like New England, and he acts like a New England Patriot. And if you want to know why teams like the Cowboys, maybe even the Seahawks, we'll see what happens with the Packers with Aaron Rodgers, who I do think is the best quarterback in the league. You take up all the money, and something else is going to go poorly. Something else is going to be at lower quality than you want. I mean, when you're redoing a house, do you spread the budget around? How much do you put in the kitchen? How much do you put in the bathrooms? How much do you put, into little things? Do you need a pool outside? If you go cheap on the windows, it will increase your heating and cooling costs. And it'll decrease your resale value. So I look at Baker, and I have some questions about his ability to throw the ball over the middle of the field, about their offensive line. But what I don't have questions about is how he seems to fit them. They fans, they players, they organizationally, they coaching staff are all in on Baker Mayfield. And I think that the football is only part of it. I think there's actually more to it, and it has to do with fit. And I think Brady's the same way. Does it help that he can take less money because his wife is worth so much money? Yes. Does it help that he's made so much money for so long? Sure. But it's still impressive how he's been able to get them to consecutive Super Bowls and how their offense has been able to evolve, and his lack of ego where he doesn't have to be, I don't have to be the highest paid player. I'm the only one with 6 rings. Yeah, I'm looking at odds to win the Super Bowl. The Patriots are favorites. So are the Chiefs. They're both at 6-1. The Rams and Saints are at 10-1. The Colts and Bears and Eagles and Packers are at 14-1. Chargers at 61. That seems like found money right there. Chargers at 16-1. The Browns are at 20-1, which is the same as the Steelers and the Dallas Cowboys. Wow. What a dramatic change. Let's welcome in Mark Schlereth. He's a 3-time Super Bowl champion. He also makes his own chili. He posts videos from Alaska, where he grew up. He's kind of the American male role model, and he joins us in the Doug Gottlieb Show. Are you in Alaska, or where are you right now?
Yeah, I'm in Girdwood. I'm Girdwood, Alaska right now. It's absolutely gorgeous. They've had a heat wave all summer long. It's sunny and mid-70s to 80 degrees. It's just been absolutely gorgeous.
So what do you do during the day?
Play cards, drink coffee, work around the house, help my dad out, whatever. I mean, we're going to go do some fishing, so the fish are running right now. We're actually in the kitchen of my mother-in-law's house cleaning fish. My Uncle Bob is cleaning fish right now. He's going to smoke some salmon. It's going to be awesome.
Mark Schlereth joining us live from Alaska. How are your beer chugging skills?
Oh, I don't drink a lot, but I can chug a beer. But I don't know at what point that became a test of manlyhood. I like to think of raising your kids and being kind and loving and gentle and peaceful, and all those things I like to think of a better indicator of manlyhood, not necessarily beer chugging and bench pressing, but I can do both of those too.
Okay, so my thought on Baker, though, is, like, look, I get it's a little over the top, and the guy's got to win some football games and continue to improve, because they weren't great against the best teams last year. But if there's a city that's kind of been, crapped on by most NFL fans, and rightfully so, based upon the revolving door of quarterbacks and of coaches, like, here's a guy who kind of hard scrabble out of nowhere to a Heisman Trophy to number 1 overall pick, and just kind of the way he purports himself, almost like a cartoon character, I kind of think it works for Cleveland. Do you agree or disagree?
No, I agree. And I think one of the interesting things about the Cleveland Browns and Baker Mayfield is, having called one of their games last year and been at practice on Friday and talked to their John Dorsey. John Dorsey was like, let me just tell you something about this kid, man. And forgive the French, but he said he's all balls. This kid just doesn't back down from anybody. He's got this football acumen, this brilliant mind, kind of almost, photographic, in that he can call a play. You can give him a new play with a ton of verbiage in the morning. He can recall it in the afternoon when he's out of practice. He can tag every route. I mean, he just has a great football mind, and the guys respond to his style of leadership, man. He is a gunslinger. He'll just go out there and play. He'll talk smack to the opponents. And he'll air dudes out. You can see him air dudes out in practice and then come right up beside him later and put his arm around him, and they just respond to him. They believe in him. And I will tell you, I had a lot of question marks coming into last season of what kind of pro he would be, and he has answered every one of those question marks to the point where I've just become a fan.
Okay, so one of the interesting things is over the weekend, the Cleveland Browns' former assistant coach, who was most known for his prodigious gut, right? Joe Wiley, he came out and he said, like, look, no disrespect, but I think they hired the wrong guy. What do you think of their decisions at coach and how it'll affect what they do this season?
Yeah, well, I'm a Freddie Kitchens fan. I've been around him a little bit, and and he's a good football coach. So obviously, I'm a fan of his. Also, the defensive coordinator, Greg Williams, who was the interim head coach, I think is a hell of a football coach, and he bounces around, from place to place, and everywhere he goes, their defense is exceptional. The thing about him is he's got an acquired personality. He essentially invented football. Just ask him. He's one of those guys. But the players love playing for him. He can be, vitriolic, and he can be one of those guys that, gets after people. And if you can't handle that, then, he can be a guy that you want to move away from. But I will just tell you that Greg Williams is a hell of a football coach. And, he got caught up in the whole Bounty Gate thing, which was, to me, was an absolute just bunch of garbage, because every one of us that's ever been involved in the game, we're involved in bounties of some kind or another, and it's not necessarily about, and it never was about hurting people. It's about, laying people out and being aggressive and being physical and all those things. And you won TVs and, cash prizes and all that kind of stuff throughout my career. I was part of it. I think any guy that tells you that played in my day and age, and even until recently, if they tell you they weren't a part of any of that, they're lying, because it was a big part of the game. So, he's one of those guys that people have a tough time, representing the organization. But I think Freddie Kitchens is a hell of a football coach. We'll just see. I mean, we all know that when you become a head coach, it's a whole different animal. And some guys respond really well to it. Other guys have a tough time being a head coach, especially for the first time.
Yeah, Bob Wiley, the former assistant who apparently Freddie Kitchens did respond to him earlier today. We'll play that for people a little bit later on. Doug Gottlieb Show, Fox Sports Radio. Mark Schlereth is our guest. He's an NFL and Fox analyst. He's a 3-time Super Bowl champion. Tom Brady takes a new contract. It's at $23 million this year. He could become a free agent at the end of next year, or it spikes a little bit into the mid-30s. But once again, going below market value. I get that he has Giselle, but other guys would have the ego. I got 6 rings. I should be the top paid guy. What's your reaction to Tom Brady taking a little less?
I just think that that's where he is in his career. It's all about, for him winning championships. He doesn't have to be the highest paid guy as long as they use that money efficiently. And, who can argue with the way they have spent it? I know they haven't necessarily, they've gone away from guys that were about ready to become highest paid type of guys. But they have a formula. They have a system of the guys you're going to pay. They're going to pay, a top-flight corner. That's what they're going to do. They're never going to spend that money on a top-flight wide receiver. It's not what they do. They'll pay a left tackle. They understand how they want to build their roster, and Tom Brady has given them the flexibility to do that. And I think it's just one of the many things that fascinates me about Tom Brady as an individual and as a person, where it's about winning and it's not about ego. They tell a story about Gerard Mayo, who had a great season for the New England Patriots, and he doesn't get elected to the Pro Bowl, and he's pouting in his locker, and Tom Brady basically walks up to him and says, quit your crying and whining. You think I play this game to go to Pro Bowls? We play here at New England to win Super Bowls. And that's kind of the philosophical approach that he has. I mean, I'm always fascinated about a guy that doesn't let ego drive him, be the deciding factor. He doesn't need to be the highest paid guy. And, he's got all this championship caliber, 6 championships. He's played in 9 Super Bowls. And the guy, to me, he's not sated by success. He just continues to be the hardest working dude there is. I find him fascinating. It's just another part of kind of who he is as a quarterback that, that I think is amazing, and one of the big reasons they continue to go to championships every year.
All right, Jerry Jones came out and said, "Don't worry, everybody's going to get paid." It feels like there's an order there, how they want to take care of guys. But Dak probably wants a little bit more than they have budgeted, and Zeke is probably out of order in terms of how he wants to get paid now before everybody else is taken care of. What are your thoughts on what's going on in Dallas?
Well, I think it's a tough situation. I mean, the quarterback, Dallas would have served themselves well if you target a guy that is going to be your guy, especially a guy like Dak, who didn't have that 5th-year option. It was a 4th-round draft choice. You knew he was your guy. You knew it a year ago. You offered him big money a year ago when he still had 2 years left on his deal at, a 4th-round draft pick, which you're not making the kind of money those first-rounders are making. The odds are is his agent would have said, hey, this is life-changing money. This is generational money. Take it. Now, all of a sudden, you're into that last year. You can smell free agency around the corner. You know what the going rate is. You can Kirk Cousins it if you need to. Now, why would you settle for less if this is the first time that you have a chance to make that generational type money? So, that to me is one of those, if you've targeted the guy, it's always better to come to him early than wait for him to become a potential free agent when you can see it right around the corner. So that's their mistake. That's Jerry Jones's mistake for not getting it done early. As far as Zeke Elliott is concerned, I understand where the running back position is in this league. And, I don't know that you would ever pay a running back that it would make sense. He's coming out after, 3 years of playing, 2 years where he led the league in rushing, saying, I want to get mine because I may never get to that second contract. So, I mean, it's somewhat of a mess. And for him to get signed, I think he's going to have to, with 2 years left, he's going to have to take less than he obviously wants. But, I look at that's kind of the way that things have got to go on in Dallas for them to really get all 3 of those guys. We didn't even talk about Cooper, but to get all 3 of those guys paid.
Mark Schlereth is our guest on the Doug Gottlieb Show on Fox Sports Radio. Ryan Khalil chose to come out of retirement, and he said he did so because he wanted to play with Sam Darnold. He respected Sam Darnold. I'm sure 5 and change. How hard is that to shut it down for the offseason, thinking you're going to retire and then crank it back up?
Well, I think it would be exceptionally difficult, but you're getting paid to do it. You've done it for a while. I'm sure that he was still in lifting type of shape. It's the football shape, but nowadays with the off season and everything else, the way it works, you're never really in football shape until you slip your pads on and start hitting guys again. So I think that is a difficult situation. But I think the other thing about these players today is, with the limited contact and the rules of practice and stuff, that you feel as though you can probably just kind of get through it, and you're not going to beat your body up as much as you did back in the day. So, and he's been around for a while, so he knows the difference. So I'm sure he's got a pretty good feel on how he can manage his body.
All right, listen, well, you manage yourself well up in Alaska. Have fun smoking that fish and catching more fish and reconnecting with your own childhood and with your in-laws. And we appreciate you joining us.
I appreciate it, Dougie. Take care, buddy.